My name is Vanessa Hart, and with 3 words, my family erased me from the most important day of my life. The text came the night before my Harvard graduation. We're too tired from your sister's trip to attend your graduation, honey. I stared at the screen, the words not even landing as a shock but as a final, dull confirmation of a truth I'd known my whole life. In our family, I was the background noise. My sister, Chloe, was the symphony. I typed back 2 words, rest well. I didn't tell them I was the valedictorian. I didn't tell them my speech would be broadcast on national television. The next morning I walked onto that stage, looked into the cameras and spoke to the world. By noon my name was everywhere, and my parents' phones were blowing up not with congratulations but with panic calls from reporters asking a single devastating question: why are your seats the only ones empty? If you've ever been overlooked by the very people who were supposed to see you most, then stay with me. This is Past Quest Stories. Comment your city below, because what happened next didn't just expose a family secret, it redefined the very meaning of family. My childhood wasn't filled with laughter and chaos. It was defined by a specific kind of silence, the quiet that settled after every celebration that wasn't mine. We lived in a small Indiana town where your value was measured by how often your parents mentioned you at the grocery store. And in our house, that value had a name: Chloe. I was simply Chloe's sister, a footnote in someone else's glorious story. I remember my 10th birthday. The living room was a riot of pink and gold balloons, but they weren't for me. Mom had ordered a cake that read, "Congratulations, Chloe," for a dance competition she'd won the week before. I stood beside it, smiling in photos that were never meant for me, holding a slice of cake on a napkin that spelled my name wrong. Vanessa had become Isabel. When I timidly asked if we could light candles for me, my mother's voice was gentle, yet it cut deeper than any shout. "Oh, honey, we already have all this set up. Let's not make it complicated." So I clapped for Chloe. I always clapped for Chloe. That night, I found my gift on the kitchen counter, an unused notebook from one of my dad's accounting conferences. Midwest Accounting Expo 2006 was embossed on the cover. As Chloe fell asleep surrounded by new trophies, I opened that notebook and began to write. It was my first act of rebellion, giving a voice to the girl who had none. Chloe was sunshine. I was the quiet girl who fixed the Wi-Fi. It didn't matter that I had straight A's. At family dinners, the conversation always orbited her, her recitals, her smile, her life. My name only came up when the DVD player needed fixing. The breaking point, the one that still sits like a stone in my soul, was the 8th grade science fair. For 3 weeks I'd built a wind turbine from scrap I'd salvaged from the town junkyard. When it spun under the gym lights, it shimmered. When they called my name for first place, the applause felt like a sunbeam breaking through a lifelong cloud. My eyes instinctively scanned the audience for my parents, for Chloe. Their seats were empty. I kept smiling as the principal shook my hand, but inside a part of me hollowed out forever. "Sweetheart, we really wanted to come," my mom said that night over meatloaf, not meeting my eyes. "But your sister had her prom fitting, and you know how hard those appointments are to get." My dad nodded, chewing. The conversation was over. I nodded too. That was the night I learned my achievements were meant to exist in silence. The only one who truly saw me was my grandma Helen. She found me later, covered in grease from an old radio I was fixing in the garage. She didn't scold me. She just watched me and said, "You don't need applause to be valuable, sweetheart. Some of the brightest stars burn quietly where no one looks." Her words became my armor. I stopped expecting them to see me. I poured myself into my studies, into words and numbers, the only things that were fair and never played favorites. My senior year, I won a state essay competition. The local paper called. My mom told them, "Oh, that's nice, but we can't do an interview. We're packing for Chloe's competition in Chicago." That same week, my English teacher, Mr. Lee, saw the fire in me that my family refused to acknowledge. "You think small because they make you feel small," he said, handing me a sealed recommendation letter for Harvard. "Don't let anyone talk you out of applying." I wrote my essay about building belonging in invisible spaces. It was my life disguised as social commentary. When the acceptance letter came, a crimson emblem shining through the frost on our mailbox, I stood on the porch and wept. The warmth of that victory was a fire I had built myself against the cold of their indifference. When I showed them the letter, my mom's first response was, "Harvard, that's so far away." My dad was, "You'd have more support if you stayed close. Chloe could use your help with her applications." I just nodded, and that night I wrote in my grandma's notebook, "They don't see it yet, but someday they will." Harvard was my awakening. The air crackled with ambition. I worked part-time in the library, often surviving on instant ramen, my stomach a constant, gnawing reminder of my solitude, but I thrived. I led the Women in Tech Club. I dove into research, using data to improve healthcare access for the poor. For the first time, I was chasing a purpose, not just a grade. Yet at every award ceremony, every research presentation, my eyes would drift to the family section. The chairs reserved for Vanessa Hart were always empty. The text the night before graduation was just the final thread snapping. "We're too tired from your sister's trip, we'll rest this weekend." I didn't cry, I didn't scream. A profound, chilling clarity settled over me. I replied, "Rest well," and made a decision. The next morning, as thousands gathered in Harvard Yard, I requested 3 seats in the family section. One for my grandma Helen, one for my best friend Maya, and one I left deliberately, pointedly empty. On it I placed a simple bouquet of white tulips and a single crimson rose. When my name was announced as the valedictorian speaker, I walked to the podium, my heart not pounding with fear but beating with a steady, powerful rhythm of truth. I looked into the cameras, and then I looked directly at